Hi, everyone. I'm Sujith. And first of all, I want to say, I'm just kind of touched by the amount of commitment that has been shown to international students' well-being, at least in New South Wales. So thanks, everyone. I'm currently finishing my PhD at UNSW. What I'll be doing is just give a bit of background as to where I've come from and then, my experience working on this. So I come from Singapore, where sexuality and sexual health education for LGBTQ communities is pretty much non-existent, as it is in many parts of Asia. The only thing that we are told is that same-sex sexual activity between males is an offense, even though it's not enforced. So we know little, if anything, about PrEP, PEP, how to keep yourself safe. What we know, is what AIDS looks like, how it's the worst thing that can happen. The Kaposi sarcoma lesions and so on. That's what we're taught in science classes. Also, a few years ago, the country's health promotions board, they put up an online resource guide that was remarkably progressive and sensitive to sexuality and gender diversity, but there was a lot of opposition to it, and the resource was removed. So no one talks about sexual health unless you're the tiny minority that somehow manages to get linked to LGBTQ networks, which takes a lot of bravery and awareness of identity, and so on. So long story short, I come from a place where things are shrouded in in cultural conspiracies of secrecy and shame, where ethnicity and sexuality contribute to a lack of confidence and self-worth. So coming to Australia for the first time in 2008 for a 3-month internship was a breath of fresh air. For the first time in my life, I felt human. There were people who were interested in my views, interested in getting to know me. They seemed attracted to me. It was this explosion of wow. At this point in time, I was just stunned and grateful that people desired me, and I did whatever I could to make them happy because I didn't want to fuck it up. And this included doing physical stuff that I wasn't entirely comfortable with because I assumed that's what people did, right? I didn't know who to talk to. And this was a common experience amongst gay international students who moved to Australia, right? Incredibly common. And I returned to Sydney in 2017, a bit older, more aware of how to manage sexual health risks. But for many international students, navigating desire and identity for the first time, doing that can be very tricky. Australia represents an intoxicating amount of potential and opportunity. Um, Now, remember, we come here with all these ideas about sex and sexuality and disease and shame and a sense of precarity because we are on a temporary visa. And coming to a new country with new health system and often a language that feels very foreign can be deeply confusing and overwhelming. There's also this fear that you're being watched and judged by your peers, that health services will pass personal information to the government, screw up your visa process, and so on. Even for me, with all my education specializing on gender, sexuality, and human rights, I didn't know about hepatitis and HPV vaccines and where to get them, whether I could afford accessible PrEP and PEP, whether someone would be told to leave the country or be denied permanent residency if they ever get tested positive for HIV. So you'd be afraid to get tested. So for the longest time, I relied on searching through Google for information I needed or through word of mouth. And even though I managed to find some useful information, I didn't know if they were applicable to me as an international student without access to Medicare. And some of my younger friends were worried if their OSHC statements would be sent to their parents. I also had some people coming to me, telling me, "Oh my goodness, I had someone like, basically assaulting me sexually. What can I do? They came in me there's a tear in the condom, so on and so forth." And thankfully, they were marketing the PEP hotline, and at that point in time, so I could have that number to pass to them. So you can imagine my excitement and relief when I learned about how there were plans to launch an international student health hub as a one-stop portal for accurate, reliable, and trustworthy information targeted at international students. And I was really happy to see that there was a serious interest in working with international students to develop that resource. We were invited to shape the website's design and to share our opinion on the sorts of information we felt would be important. As the consultation was anonymously and asynchronously done online in multiple stages, we could participate at times that were convenient to us, and we were encouraged to think more deeply about what mattered to us. So I think, having that sort of online space really helped us to kind of think, negotiate, and sort of set the time aside to think seriously about what it is we want to see from such a resource. I spent some time on the website that we're launching today. I'm really glad to see our feedback taken into account. So it wasn't just a rubber stamping thing. I mean, obviously, the design process is very much influenced and by our input, and that was quite heartening. I think this is a wonderful start towards helping international students navigate common health issues, and I have very high hopes for its future. And there's so much potential to making this simple but game-changing resource even more widely available, culturally appropriate, and interactive. For example, a small internship or volunteer program or contests where international students are invited to produce stories, articles, podcasts, videos, talk about their experiences, the Australian health system, challenges they face, and the support they received. So contextual first-hand content or consolidated list of telephone numbers, email addresses, a chat box about, contact points that students could reach out to in case they needed a PEP hotline, for instance, because it can be quite difficult to navigate to the right page in any sort of resource to get to what they need. But overall, this is a significant and incredibly promising step in the right direction. The website looks great. It's more than enough information. I mean, I wish I had this like a few years ago so I could like send it to all my friends. I'm impressed by the commitment of the project's collaborators in doing their best to ensure that international students were very sincerely and respectfully consulted and included. And I'm really thankful to have been a part of the process.